noon hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome in. It is Hans and Scotty. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Merry post-Christmas. I hope that you've had an incredible time off, or I hope you're enjoying your time off, whichever that might be at this very moment. It's been busy for Scotty and I. Scotty is out for the day, but we are jam-packed with plenty of things. He's out because I think he may have sprained his voice putting on an amazing performance in the Idaho Potato Bowl, which was inspiring and incredible. Scotty and I had a unique opportunity to call the Idaho Potato Bowl together, and we had a blast. We really did. We had so much fun just getting to call this game together, and so many opportunities just to call football and have fun for the Christmas season and be with good people and eat some good food. I stayed for an amazing steak. Scotty took off. We both had to drive back the night of the game. So we finished up the game and we both drove back. I stayed and took my amazing wife to a great steak dinner at Chandler's there in Boise, Idaho. And it was amazing. It was a great steak. And then we drove home and got home a little bit later. But Scotty's got all kinds of basketball duties and very busy with that. So we'll take care of things today. We've got a jam-packed lineup. Greg Bolerjack is going to join us here in a couple of minutes. And we're going to talk some Jazz. We're going to talk mostly college football. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to talk mostly college football with Greg Bolerjack because Boler, for many, many years, that was his passion. That was his pleasure. He called a lot of football, and he loved football for a lot of years. So we'll talk a lot of football with Greg Bolerjack coming up here in just a little bit. And then we got Mitch Harper, who's going to join us at 1 o'clock. We're going to get a really deep BYU roster drive. We've got Greg Wrubell. The real deal, the OG. He's going to join us at 1:30. And Lloyd, tell us a little bit about the simulcasting that we've got going on today.
So starting at 1 o'clock, you are going to be able to hear your docile tones obviously on the Zone, and then, of course, KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Okay. So
simulcasting. Yes.
It's going to be on the – okay.
Yes.
Well, look at that. Got a nice signal that we're going to tap into.
Yes.
What is this, just a radio takeover, or are you just clicking into the tower?
It is a Alamo Bowl preview takeover.
Okay.
We are talking BYU, Colorado, 1-3. Got a ton of guests through those 2 hours.
Yeah, Greg Wrubell, 1:30. Mark Johnson, who is the legendary play-by-play voice of the Colorado Buffalo, he's going to join us at 2:05. And then Mitch Juergens. This is Greg Wrubell and I's sideline guy for the BYU season. He does an amazing job.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to send me a screen grab, please.
So we got the Mitch and Mitch. No, you've got a screen. You've got his number.
I don't have. I lost my screen grab.
I've sent it to you many, many times.
Well, I think you could probably do that because I am letting you use my login right now on a computer. So can you help me out?
Okay. Whoa. What have you been? What you been into?
Because you don't have the ability to log into your computer for some weird reason.
I don't. Sorry. I apologize. Hold on. I'm just pulling this up because just watching some bowl coverage before I headed over to the show. Oklahoma currently leading Navy 14-7 in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Oklahoma finished the season 6-6. When somebody steals your quarterback, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Oklahoma currently leading Navy 14-7. Navy had one of those great seasons that they come across every now and then. They had 3 losses on the season to Notre Dame and Tulane, and then one that's a little more inexplicable maybe at Rice. But they beat Army at the end of the season. Both those teams came into that matchup ranked, and then they got the win over Army. And Navy currently trails Oklahoma 14-7. The reason I'm taking a look at some of the scores here, I don't know how many of you know that Craig Bolerjack enrolled at Kansas State University, and he was actually a part of the Kansas State Wildcats football team as a linebacker. We all know that Matt Harpering played a little bit of football in his time, but how many of you really know that Craig Bolerjack was a heck of a linebacker and suffered a couple bad injuries? Hey, how does that ACL injury, does that still linger on you, Bowler?
Oh, well, I've had both knees replaced, Hans. How about that?
Oh.
Just in the last 14 months, I had both of them done.
Oh.
And you know what? I had no choice. The ACLs, I've had them reconstructed. I had 7 operations on my right and 3 on my left. And you know what happens is that you just have to finally give in. I did everything I could. PRP, I did some stem cell, did all the rehab you could possibly think of. But, you know, it's an injury that after years, and the way that I got my first surgeries were archaic.
Oh, archaic, yes, with hatchets.
I mean, they opened you up, and there was a joke around the house when the boys were small that my dad, the boys would tell their buddies, my dad, because I told him that once, and he never forgot it, because I just have these 9-inch, you know, side scars, you know, on both knees. And so I always told him, yeah, when I was wading in the ocean, man, the shark came up. Of course, I won the fight, but he got me with his teeth, you know. You know, it's just fun stuff when the kids are small, man. They loved it, and the boys would bring their buddies over. Hey, look, my dad's knees. But nothing to be totally proud of. I mean, I love the game, but you pay the price later. And I think you talk to anyone who's played, whether it's high school, you know, college, professional. I mean, the guys I worked with at CBS and Fox, holy heck, Dan Dierdorf, you know, Dan Fouts, all these guys have stories and scars, and they struggle, you know, they struggle. And I finally just said, let's do it. And mine, you know, they're bone on bone, and you start to get a bow in your leg, and that's when you know it's time, because the fibia, tibia, they slip out. I mean, here I'm a medical doctor. I'm not. But I'm just
yeah,
saying,
but you've been through it.
I've learned a lot. Yeah, I've learned a lot about knees, man, over the last 40-plus years for sure.
Yeah, watching some of these old boys go through it. You know, Jack Youngblood is a very close family friend, and he has just suffered one way or the other. And you know, dealing with the CTE has been really tough for him. And you wish that the NFL would do a little bit more for these old boys that really played back when you talked about it, when they would deal with injuries with hatchets and chainsaws and very little actual care. Nowadays, it's pretty incredible what these surgeons can do, but back in those days, man, Jack Youngblood, they weren't even doing surgery. They were just telling him, take 2 weeks off and we'll get her back.
Well, and then you know, the North Dallas 40, you know that movie with Nick Nolte?
Sure.
I don't, you've seen that one, and that kind of gives you an inside look. Probably, maybe there's some truth to it, but you know, the shots are still a part of the game, and you know, you had to play or you didn't get paid, and the pressure of just being on the field, because it's that next man mentality. I mean, your career, you know, Hans, I know. I'm so intrigued by longevity and how LeBron has played 20, and he'll be 40 in about 5 days on December 30th, 2 days, and it's amazing that some have the ability and some do not. But longevity in football is very short, 3.5 to 4 years, if that. And think about it. How could you be retired at the age now of 26 or 7 and then have a full life ahead of you? I mean, you can't define yourself just for football. You have to find something else. In basketball, you may last 6, maybe 7, but there's always somebody behind you pushing that roster spot, and they want to get in just like you did.
Who was the head coach when you were playing linebacker at K-State?
Well, I had 2, actually. I was here. Our class got really sandwiched in between transition. I got recruited by the Ellis Rainsberger regime, and then Jim Dickey came in and took over. So our recruiting class was like, who are you guys? You know? And so that's kind of what we dealt with. And then the injuries came quick, and then you rehab, you get hurt again. So after the second one, I just said, I'm done. And found my way into broadcasting and you know, from biology to broadcast. I mean, holy heck. I love science, Hans, but you know what? I just didn't have the study habits trying to go in there. And I remember one assignment here. I am talking about, my college career, but I was in organismic biology, so I had to dissect what was then a fetal pig, and I thought, what am I doing? I mean, I don't know if I can stand to be a surgeon, right? But biology was part of it, and I've always been intrigued by it, and I enjoyed the class. But man, I realized I don't know if I got enough time to do this, because you had to really dive in deep. But found my way, and here I am. So everybody's got a story.
Do you miss calling the college football game?
Oh, big time. Oh, yes. 25 years. I was 12 when I started, so it's one of those
there
things.
You go. I mean, do the math.
But no, I loved the SEC. You and I've talked. It's like a religion. Football, college football, is such a passion of fans, and I saw it so much. I mean, here it's huge, and obviously BYU and Utah make it that way. And I'm so glad to see that rivalry will be, hopefully, you never know how college football is going to continue to evolve. But for the time being, in the same conference, Big 12, the SEC, man, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida. It was an honor to have a chance to go and be a part of doubleheader day on CBS. Vern Lundquist had the late game. I had the early one at 3:30, and worked with a bunch of different analysts along the way. But man, I enjoyed it. Walking through the Grove, you get to meet people. And what's amazing, Hans, is that during those days, there's 30,000 people that aren't even going into the stadium. The tailgate is what it's about, because they move week to week in these 30-foot, mobile homes, and they set up camp like on a Wednesday for Saturday's football game. And so they're like family, and they move from one spot to another. It's an amazing thing. Tailgating at the U is wild, but man, I've never seen so many people just move with a team and really take part in the ups and downs of a football season. And the coaches play such a big part. Nick Saban, I knew at LSU, knew Nick when he was at Alabama. Then he went, he had a short stay in the NFL when I was doing Dolphins games, and got to know him. He's a intense man, and Les Miles is too. But I wouldn't trade that. I mean, I met so many interesting people along the way, and I love the NFL, but college football, man, that's where it's at.
It really is. It's an incredible product, and Bowler, things have changed a little bit since you were part of Kansas State, and in the years that you've been calling. And you go back to your time at Kansas State or my time at BYU and our time at the college ranks, and we were broke, man. We were broke as a joke. I mean, as broke as you could be. I had to call my parents for money every month. Because we got a $420 scholarship stipend. That was our monthly scholarship.
You remember, Hans, when you got recruited, and I had the honor of just some JUCOs and I got recruited by Arkansas. Lou Holtz should have gone there, but you follow a girlfriend, and look what happens.
That's what happens.
The beauty of it, when I told my folks I have a scholarship, I mean, that is, to me, is what struggles for me to make the change into the NIL understanding. Because in those days, and I know people get tired of saying, oh, you guys are rolling back the old days, but there was an honor about that. The school would offer you an education for free to play football. And I think, that I couldn't believe it, because education's expensive. It's even more so today, as we know. But now that's not enough. And I get it that the schools make money and the likenesses and all the above. But, man, when you're starting to get into $4 and $7 million NIL deals, I mean, where does it stop? And there's going to have to be a cap somehow, some way, legislation or what, through the NCAA. Maybe that's just what the free world market is. But, man, some schools are going to absolutely die on the vine because they cannot compete. They cannot compete. And I speak of Utah State, right? Your son's going there, right?
Yep.
And they're going to have to sacrifice bodies on the first 3 Saturdays of every weekend in September just to go play, to get paid, and try to survive. And that's concerning because in 10 years' time or less, maybe 5, maybe 3, I mean, you may just have yourself a 40-league, high echelon league in college football, and the rest of the college, the smaller colleges, just kind of wilt away, which is sad. because it gives a lot of opportunity to a lot of good athletes that may be a half an inch shorter and a tick slower on the 40 time, but yet it's a great opportunity and a great experience, man, to be a collegiate athlete.
It is.
And I don't know where they're going, but I've never thought in my days that I would see money spent to an 18, 19, 20-year-old, and actually some of these players will make more money in college than they will ever in professional sports, and they may never play professionally.
Yeah.
And I speak of Cam Rising, talented guy, but injuries are part of the game, and you wonder, Hans, I mean, how much, how long do you want to drag on a college career? But I guess again, when you're getting paid, you say, why not? But injuries are part of it, and you're going to take that chance to make a buck.
That's amazing, Bowler. I've got 4 very close acquaintances with kids that are in the college ranks right now, and all of the 4 are making over $500,000 in a given year. Plus, it's $500,000 plus. I've got one instance of $1.2 million, one instance of $750,000 per year, and we're talking everything from a defensive back to an offensive lineman, and we're talking about $500,000 plus per year. That's the kind of money that these kids are making right now, Bowler. And 18, 19-year-old kids.
Alums better be ready to make the commitment to write those checks and to keep your football competitive. Luckily, there are schools that have some heavy duty, alums who have a checkbook and they'll write them out. I remember a story when Mac Brown was on his way out of Texas. We did about 4 of his last 5 games, and we got invited into his inner sanctum. And Texas football, now Sarkisian, former Cougar quarterback, is running the show with the Longhorns. And I'll be honest, Hans, I've never seen a program that, just had so many guys sitting in Mac's office. And, you could just tell they were going to write checks for anything that school needs.
Yeah.
And, those are what those power conferences truly are. They're driven by alumni support. And if they want somebody out, they're out. If they want somebody in, they'll pay the check to get them back in or up the ante. And it's the same thing with NIL. Yeah, are you going to lose this kid? Come on, we're going to lose him. I need somebody to write a check, and that's where we are right now. And I just wonder how fans and those alums, how they're going to feel if that kid doesn't pan out, or if he gets hurt and he never walks on the field again. It's going to be interesting, to see how it all works out. But it's the money's crazy. I mean, it really is when you think about $7 million, and sometimes a rookie contract in the NBA is $500,000 just to play a 2-way deal in the NBA. But $7 million for a 19-year-old?
Oh, whoa. Boy, yeah, going to the basketball recruit at BYU. Yeah.
Oh, what was the final count?
I think it's $7 million.
I'm on the road so much. Was it $7 or $8 million?
Yeah, I think it was $7 million. For the 1 year that he'll be there.
And he's going to jump and then find himself. He may take a pay cut just that first year in the league. I mean, I'm not sure what rookie salary is right now, but it's jumping around. But
he might take a pay cut.
They could. Some of these guys say, hey, what's the deal? I'm going to stay in college an extra year. What's this 1-and-out stuff? But it's an amazing time. And I think fans, there's many that are angry about it. I get it. The newer generation will probably just say it's part of, to accept it's just part of the process. But for us who kind of grew up in a different time where you had the appreciation of the scholarship and the education that supposedly came with it, but now shocking. That's not even a part, Hans. No one stays 4, right? And most of them, again, I always wish them well. Health is number 1. And I never wish ill on anyone to find an injury, but it does happen. And, schools are going to have to learn how to deal with that. And then you're going to get probably where, well, we have to take some of that NIL money back because you can't get on the field. And that'll be interesting, too, to see what these contracts read. If it's guaranteed money, I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I haven't read one.
Yeah, I don't know the verbiage on it. And these kids now have agents, Bowler, so most of these
amazing?
agents, yeah. They're
if you're working with $5 and $7 million, somebody's got to help you out with the cash.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to be careful that someone doesn't take it out of your pocket at the same time. That's money to put away, and you're going to be taken care of, and, could be generational money if you do it right. But, man.
Have you heard?
The old days of the NCAA hands?
Yeah.
You know how they used to hunt after, schools that would cheat like Reggie Bush?
Oh, yeah.
And where did the new SUV come, or why did your mom have a brand new house?
Yep.
Those days are over. I mean, there's no more hunting because it's right out in the open.
Have you heard how much these college agents are getting off these kids now?
Well, it used to be 10. Is it 18?
Between 10 and 20%.
Wow.
What are NBA agents? NFL agents, we were 3% was the top end. Couldn't go more than 3. And
I think
in
the day of the Jerry Maguire movie, I think they were working for 3 to 5%, but you was bargain. You had to bargain it on you could negotiate that depending on how much the contract was for. But I'm not sure what the money is now. And TV, the old contracts with a couple of agents that I used to work with at the network, it was between 7 and 10.
Okay.
But you can negotiate that. That was the important part of it too. It wasn't just set in stone.
Well, Bowler, are you happy to be back for just a minute? How was the 5-game road trip? You got your first back-to-back wins of the season, which was good.
Yeah, it was intriguing to watch a team, slowly come together with moments. We've seen them win by 42 and lose by 44. And so I don't know. I've said on the air a couple of times, who are these guys? They're young. There's a mix of veterans that have played really well. John Collins, for one. Walker's growing in his third year. JC's JC. We call him the Flame for a reason because sometimes he burns hot and sometimes it's ice cold, man. But, and Colin Sexton, too. I mean, when they move the ball and the turnovers are limited, they have some fair talent on that team. And they know it. I mean, they could win 30 if they stayed with it. But look, that's not what it's about. It's not winning. And that's a tough thing. I like to win. Everybody does, but it's about development. And, they keep saying data points. And I think people and fans need to understand that those are collected through, just how well they play in certain situations. It's more than just what the box score reads, Hands. How does Cody Williams, who got closing minutes, how does that work? Right out of Portland last night. Good game, by the way, just for the whole team again, and lost late with a Scoot Henderson jumper with a tenth of a second left. But those are games that they need to be in to understand what it takes to win, and that's what the whole season and probably the next one or two are going to be about is development. And Danny and Justin Zanuck, along with Will, trying to say, okay, who can play in this league? Who can stomach this league and go through the fight to be here and make this roster and make this franchise a winner. And some players, I think they expect some not to make it. And that's just the way that it works, Hands, and I'm watching it myself, and fans are watching it right now, and they're making their own decisions on who can play at this level and who can't. But you also have to give a guy who's 19 now. This is something, again, just like the NIL. These are young kids who turn into men, and I think it's really important to keep your and I have to constantly remind myself too. Yeah, it's not the Jerry Sloan days, right? You're not a 4-year guy coming out of school where your body's already developed and your mind's a little bit more mature, and you're ready to take the rigors of the NBA and also the pressure that goes with it. You're dealing with some 18, 19-year-olds that do the one and done, and you have to give them 3. And that's where Walker Kessler is, Hands, right now. I think we've seen him start to really blossom physically. He has more confidence in himself. He still has to get his head together on the free throw line. But the guy is a baller, and he's much stronger, and he's much more of a force than he was. He had a great rookie year, but, he had the sophomore slump with that injury early last year. But I like Walker. I think he's a guy that can help this team in the long run. I think he's durable, and I think he's coachable, and he wants to be as good as possible. And you know what? You put all those 3 in this, and mix them up. That's an NBA player who can handle the stresses, learn how to win, and also accepts coaching without taking it personally. And I think Will Hardy does a good job with that in that case too.
Walker's never averaged double digits in either points or rebounds in his first 2 years, and here he is averaging a double-double. So yeah. I'm with you, Bowler, and it's a great perspective that you got to provide for people, and you got to give room for these kids to grow because they're still trying to figure their bodies out, and we're bringing them into the NBA. way earlier than any other sport is bringing any youth into their professional leagues. The NHL, man, they'll send guys out to all these different leagues for 3 to 5 years before they get back to the NHL. And,
right.
and it's just tough.
Well, you can't look, Cody's the 10th pick of the draft. And he's gone, I think he's played 9 games in the G League. And that's what really the league is for. And I think, I get asked this all the time around the country and different stops, and everyone, what's wrong with the Jazz? Are they ever going to regain, their swagger and be a playoff team? And, of course, every team has to go through this. And, Hans, the biggest thing, too, is it's got to be homegrown. And I think that's what Danny and Justin and Ryan decided to do was, draft, and you got to be lucky, man, like the Jazz were with a guy named Stockton and a guy named Malone and a guy named Bailey, by the way, in 83. And look at Mark Eaton. They rolled the dice on that big guy, and look what it became. It took time to build, but they did it through the draft. And you have to get lucky. You have to get lucky on occasion, and that's what it's about. I don't like the word tank. I hope that, Jazz fans, some just want to just say, let's just lose every game. But, you have to be careful because, as you know, in the huddle or wherever you play, you can build, the way that you build a tradition and the way an athlete learns, it becomes part of who he is or her. And I think that's important to understand that you have to have a winning process throughout all this. And it's a fine line, man, you walk. And, Hans, you probably know what I'm talking about. I mean, everybody wants to win, but at what cost? At what price? And you can buy a championship most likely at some times, but I think the Jazz are looking for a larger window that will give the fan base a longer time to enjoy what they build. But you have to be careful. If you build a team and then all of a sudden they jump and go or become dissatisfied, that's another problem that a lot of teams face, not only in the NBA, but it's the same way now in college when you have a portal, right? If you don't really like the way coach treats you, or you were told that you were going to be a number 2, now you're a 3 on the lineup card, and that's not working, man. You're out the door. In the old days, they would tell you what? Play hard. You know what? Work out better. You know what? Be more mentally prepared, because you didn't have that option, just to walk out the door and say, I'm going to go someplace else. It's a interesting time.
Well, we got a couple of games right here in Salt Lake City. Philly and Embiid are here tomorrow night, and then you've got Jokic and the Denver Nuggets on Monday. So a couple of the big men. Doesn't it? Oh, yeah, good times. Good times at the Delta Center. But great games to get out and watch. Get some tickets. Go out there and enjoy it. And, Bowler, you're the absolute best. We sure appreciate all the time you give us.
Hey, anytime, Hans. You're sailing the ship without Scotty, and have a great New Year. And to all the listeners, man, I hope that everybody's safe. That's the biggest thing, and that you have fun and enjoy the new year. Hopefully, some good things happen. Right?
Well, you're my idol and my hero, Bowler. You have a great
man.
Have a great couple days, and we'll catch up with you next week.
All right, pal. Talk soon.
There you go, Craig Bolerjack, the legend. He's one of 3 people that drugged me into this crazy occupation. Going back many, many, many years ago, I was still playing professional football, bumped into him at a charitable event, and he was standing there with Jerry Sloan. I was in there with Danny White, the old Cowboy quarterback. Danny and I wandered over to Jerry and Craig Bolerjack, and Bowler had heard a couple of interviews I did. He said, man, you're good on radio. You could do this thing. That was about 19 years ago now. So always love Bowler. Very appreciative to him. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to get into some of this bowl game talk. And remember, our Alamo Bowl coverage starts at 1. It goes 1 to 3, simulcast across the board. You can find us here on 97.5 or on 102.7. That's going to be a lot of fun, 1 to 3. And jam-packed, all the best guests that you could imagine. That's all coming up on Hans and Scotty.
This is DJ and PK.
Tim Lacombe, former Ute staffer.
I came on the scene with Utah like 94. I'd heard things about Coach Majerus, but man, to hear things and then to actually experience the man and everything around him, it was stuff of legend, really.
Britain didn't use the word wrecked him. That would be me summing it up, but it definitely changed him.
What word?
Wrecked.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to... he was sometimes it felt like...
Oh, now I get it. All right. It took me a minute. Like, well, what the heck? Yeah, I know what I meant to say. I don't know what you people think you heard.
Hold on a minute. I'm on the ground. I was trying to compose myself. I seriously, when you said, what?
He says, wrecked him, damn near killed him.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty G. That's right. Yeah! On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Those Jazz updates brought to you by U of U Health. Let us help you be better. U of U Health, official health partner of the Utah Jazz. By the way, Lloyd Cole totally broke Guy Protocol with an image that he sent to my phone on a Christmas morning mishap.
I was like, wait, where are we going here? No, I didn't. Considering some of the images you send, no, I think I'm all right. I'm good. I'm all right.
I don't know, bud. When the young ones get sick, by the way, having a young kid on Christmas morning throwing up, that is just the ultimate downer.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a...
Oh, that just breaks my
depressing.
heart. Because your kids are in that perfect magical age where the world is
fun.
It's just fun and the world is so...
And by the way, and I'll tell you the story, God bless his heart, he said, you know what he said afterwards? Like after pretty much, he'd opened up all the presents, he said, Papa, that was the best Christmas ever.
As he's swishing water to get the taste out of his mouth from
so let's tell
morning.
it. Okay, so I get woken up. Well, let's start off with Jackie Blue first, because Jackie Blue tries to crawl into my bed at like 1 o'clock in the morning. This is Christmas morning. I had just probably gone to bed. Mm-hmm. Maybe been into bed for about an hour, roughly.
Because Santa had just come.
Yeah. So, and I said, nope, because he is a just a ball of heat.
Yeah.
A ball of heat. And he could be 5 feet away from us, and I still feel it just radiating. So I'm like, nope. I'm like, you got to go to your bed, bud, or Santa's not going to come. So I get him into bed, and he's like, will you cuddle with me? Like, you got it, buddy. I'll cuddle with you. So I had fallen asleep for a little bit. Next thing I know, it's like 2 a.m. And so I'm like, okay. I sneak out, slink out onto the floor and get back into my bed. And 3:45 comes around, and I hear, and Mama, who has a broken foot, is hobbling around. I hear her getting up. And so I wake up, and I'm like, and she goes, Xavier just got sick. And I'm like, oh, is he all right? Is he okay? I'm thinking it's probably made it to the toilet. No, he did not.
Made it to his carpet.
Made it to his carpet right below his bed, and somehow miraculously made it partially under his bed. I don't know how. By the way, this is my same child who decided couldn't quite get to the toilet and would puke right into the heater vent because
yes, I forgot. He did.
So I was just like,
which was fun to clean up.
And he's just like, I'm so sorry, Papa. I'm sorry. I'm like, hey, buddy, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And we've been out a couple, which I'm not that way anymore. But when I first started to try to eat some sushi and stuff like that, I struggled with it. I'd have a bite and it was good.
You got a sensitive gag reflex.
Yes, a very sensitive gag reflex.
Yeah, you do.
And I could see you doing your old chew and spit, and
it used to make you throw up.
It makes me. So I'm smelling this, and I'm like. And I'm just
at 3:50 in the morning.
At 3:50 in the morning, and I'm just like, I'm sitting there holding. I'm like,
Santa's not coming.
I'm trying to keep it down myself, and I'm like I got like a whole roll of paper towel. And I'm like almost like squeegeeing it because it was
out of the carpet.
Into the carpet. I was just like, and I get it, and I'm like,
the images are terrible.
It was horrendous.
Like a can of Spam in a blender with a little water. So
that's
horrible.
exactly what it looked like.
Oh, it's so horrible. I can't believe you sent me the picture.
I'm sorry, but you know what?
My Christmas.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that bad. So I get it. I get it clean. And I scrubbed, and yeah. So that was the day, and I was like, hey, because we started open presents, and I'm watching him, and he's just.
Oh, he's just drooping.
Yeah, and he's like laying there.
No calories in his body.
Like, do you want to try to?
He's already a slender little
should
guy.
Should we punt Christmas to tomorrow? What do you want to? And Jackson's like looking at me like, what?
Yeah, right.
He's like, no. We'll just do it right now. I'm okay. So we made it through it. It will be one of those memories. Hey, remember that one time you got sick on Christmas morning?
Yeah, and by the way, those memories stick forever.
They stick forever.
We've got some of those
stuck in my carpet forever too, probably.
Oh, that's the worst, man. Oh, that's the worst. Well, we had a good Christmas. The Olsen home. It was not bad. I was talking to Jake Scott as he was leaving, and man, I feel sick for Jake. Jake's had some rough moments through the holidays. You've got your kids puking. The Olsen house, we had one of those smooth Christmases that just...
Blessed.
It was blessed.
A blessed Christmas.
One of the few that we've got.
Finally, you know what? You finally had a Christmas go your way.
Well, I'm just glad something went my way for once. Because when's the last time...
Not to mention, by the way...
Anything's gone my way.
A dishwasher went out on me right before Christmas.
That's right, dude. That's appliance number 5 on the year.
Yeah, and the fence.
5 appliances in the fence.
It has been a year.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year.
It's been a year.
I'm finally having a decent year. 2024 was decent for me, so
that makes me happy. Hey, as long as one of us can have a good Christmas, that's all that matters.
Had 32 ounces of perfectly cooked ribeye yesterday, Lloyd.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was that a...
That's a JP special.
Ooh, you know what? You might have to wait till the... Oh, okay.
That's my boy JP.
All right.
My next door neighbor.
Nice.
He and I have been best friends for many, many, many years, and he is the king.
For many, many prime ribs have we been friends.
Many, many prime ribs. He does a prime rib typically around every Christmas time. He knows that it's my whole world. I take one plate for the entire rib. I do not use any sides. I use a little au jus, a little creamy horseradish. You know it's my favorite cut of beef. He does a salt, pepper, and garlic rub, and it's perfectly crusted. Man, I love prime rib. But it was a great day yesterday. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll give you some bowl game updates. There are a couple bowl games that are in progress. We'll give you those bowl game updates, and then we're going to get you ready. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be switching over, and we're going to be simulcasting the Alamo Bowl Preview Show on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and simulcasting right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. That all comes up at 1 o'clock. We'll kick it off with Mitch Harper. On to Greg Wrubell. We got the play-by-play voice for the Colorado Buffalo, Mark Johnson. And then we've wrapped things up with Mitch Juergens, who is our sideline guy for the BYU call. All of that coming up right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
If I were the NBA, I want coaches back in suits. I don't really like the sweatsuit thing, but I would get why a coach would never want to do that ever.
How dare you expect somebody to dress professionally in a situation that calls for it? Put them in uniform like the baseball. Some baggy shorts and a tank top.
Tibbs out there in a Knicks uniform.
He'd look great.
Look awesome. It would change who you hire as head coaches. You would almost exclusively get former players.
That look good in the uniform?
Stan Van Gundy's never getting another job. Will Hardy would look good. Fine.
What you're saying is like you're going to skew young.
Absolutely.
Not old, because even athletes get older, and when athletes get older, things get droopy.
Yeah, Doc Rivers is out.
Quinn Snyder would look so spindly.
Be a short shorts guy or a long shorts guy? Trying to look good for the job.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hey, oh boy, have you been locked in to bowl coverage, Lloyd? Watching a lot of bowl games?
When I'm not taking care of sick kids, yes.
Yeah?
I have been watching some bowl games. I've had them on in the background.
Come on, they've been fun, man.
No,
We've
have
had a
been
good bowl season so far.
Had some OTs. You had an OT. You had a double OT.
We had a double OT. That was a lot of fun. Christian came in here after you made fun of me and told Christian I'm needy and go help Hans because he's extremely needy. I couldn't get the TV turned on.
Say that out loud one more time.
I couldn't get the TV turned on. This is a very difficult TV to turn on in the studio. It's not as simple as
you have to hit a power button, the little button, the universal symbol for power.
Okay, but no, don't be a jerk. That's a really small remote, and the buttons aren't labeled on it.
What, and your sausage fingers can't handle those tiny buttons?
And no, I couldn't get logged into the computer today for some reason, so I needed your help to get logged in. But you don't have to be a jerk about it. Just help me.
Hey, I am. Did I help you?
Yeah.
But can I bust you up a little bit? Bust your chops? Can I have fun? Why? Why
now?
not?
I just
Why
busted
not?
out. I just slim shaded this whole thing and gave all my flaws out just now. Is there more? I just went rabbit all over and said everything negative about me, so you can't come at me.
Okay. Yes, I still can.
What else?
No, that's it. I'm done. I'm done for right now.
Yeah, there's something else. You bum. I've been loving bowl coverage, and tomorrow's a big day. It's not just BYU and Colorado. TCU in action and Iowa State in action. So Big 12 sits real pretty coming up tomorrow. Right now, the Big 12 is 1-1 in bowl action. And why does that matter? Well, because I continue to think that the Big 12 is fighting for relevance. I really think it's important. It's one of the reasons that I didn't want to see BYU and Colorado in the same bowl, because I wanted BYU and Colorado to have an opportunity to knock off an ACC team or an SEC team or a Big Ten team, because I think that the Big 12 is continuing to fight for relevance, and they need it. Kansas State pulled out a nail-biter against Rutgers yesterday in the fourth quarter. They won 44-41. It took a 15-point fourth quarter for Kansas State to do it. But at one point, I want to say Rutgers was up, what was it, Lloyd, like 35-17? Something crazy like that. Rutgers had this big lead. It looked like they were going to thump on Kansas State. Kansas State came roaring back and got the win in the fourth quarter. That's big. West Virginia, of course, lost to Memphis, so not a good start from West Virginia. They lost 37-42 to Memphis. So right now the Big 12 is 1-1, but tomorrow is a big day for the Big 12. You want to see TCU get the win, Iowa State get the win, and then you want to see all the eyeballs on the BYU-Colorado game. Lloyd, I think that this BYU-Colorado game sets up to be the most watched non-college football playoff game of the entire college football postseason. I was going through the numbers of viewers through the Colorado Buffalo season. It's remarkable how many viewers they've had. We'll talk a little bit with Mark Johnson about that. Just the viewership on Colorado games are unbelievable. Outside of that, Navy just took the lead on Oklahoma in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. 4 minutes left, and big thanks to Christian for coming in and getting this TV turned on for me so I can watch it.
See, did you thank me for giving you my password for my computer? That's expected, right?
I asked for help, and I saw you turn to Christian. You go, he's being really needy. Go in there and help him. And then I see Christian gets up, and Christian's laughing.
Can you help him so I can get my stuff ready on here?
You know, Lloyd, you used to be so kind-hearted.
I still am.
You used to treat me like a gem.
I still do.
Oh, man.
I still love you.
You abuse me on air.
No, that's not true. I can't even get you to take my phone calls anymore.
Don't do that.
Did you? What did you say earlier? What you said earlier? Oh, did I miss a call from you?
Yeah, I just realized that. I was getting in the car and headed down here, and I was also doing an interview with the BYU Sports Nation guys. So.
Oh, your favorite guys. Yeah. See, how do you think that makes me feel?
I do love them.
I know you do.
Oklahoma's got the ball. 3 minutes left. We'll see if they can get down the field and score. They're at the 50-yard line. We'll give you some updates on that. But Mitch Harper, he joins us next. We also start our simulcast. You're going to be able to find us on News Radio 102.7 and right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The season for the Cougars isn't over yet as we get you ready for kickoff from San Antonio. This is your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
So excited for this, the Alamo Bowl preview show here on KSL News Radio, as well as 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. My co-host, Scotty G, is on an airplane. He's headed to San Diego. He's going to be calling the Utah State versus San Diego State basketball game coming up tomorrow. That's the number 20 San Diego State Aztecs taking on your Utah State Aggies. That's going to be a really good game. But this is your Alamo Bowl coverage, and we got the best in the business to jump on with us. It's BYU insider Mitch Harper. Mitch, how you doing?
Doing great, Hans. Just here at the Marriott River Center Hotel, the BYU team hotel in the Alamo Bowl here in the lobby. And the Cougs and Buffs just got done with a kickoff luncheon, and it's time to kind of lock in. The team's going to head out to the Alamo Dome here shortly in about an hour for their walkthrough. But then it's kind of that 24-hour rule coming up and lock it down and get ready for the final game of the season. Are you warming up the city for me? Am I going to come into some good weather? I get in there at about 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning. Yes, it is warm. It is getting up to 80 degrees here, and it is wonderful. It's been an awesome bowl, and I will say, BYU, all bowl games have their charm, if you will, but you can sense these games that have power conference teams against each other, and there's a lot more money invested into these games. You can just kind of sense the level up nature of kind of the hospitality. BYU's been some good bowl games from hospitality in the past, but this Alamo Bowl, I think, is probably the best brand bowl game BYU's been to since, back when you were playing in the Cotton Bowl. I think this is probably that best bowl. I mean, this has been a really good event so far. So there have been a couple of different media availabilities and opportunities, but only one in which Deion Sanders showed up in overalls. Walk us through his bright white overalls and the presser that you were just at between he and Kalani Sitake. The full Coach Prime effect was on display. And it's just the difference in fashion. Coach Prime in overalls, as you noted, and a hoodie underneath, and then Coach Kalani is wearing a sport coat with a polo underneath. Just two opposite ends of the spectrum, the way that they approach media, the way that they approach, coaching. But it also, the one thing that's the common thread is that they do really love football. And you know what, honestly, Hans, I think that, Coach Prime's got a polarizing figure and, personality in college football. But I really enjoy the way he kind of goes about running his program, and he's pretty candid. He's transparent when it comes to, I'm going to flip a roster and go to the transfer portal. And, he was talking about how there needs to be, financial classes that are mandatory for athletes. He's using his platform to talk about what changes need to be made in college football. And I can appreciate that. I like that. And I think Kalani does a good job too. And, about that, but it was interesting to kind of see Coach Prime in person, up close, and to really see the complete differences between him and Kalani. Man, you really got to bow down to what Coach Prime has done for Colorado. I was putting together some numbers for the call coming up tomorrow. I'll be on the call with Greg Wrubell, and you'll actually be able to hear it right here on 102.7. And one of the numbers I came across in 2023 alone, Mitch, the Prime impact, they ran a bunch of numbers, did a lot of research. They found that he impacted that university by $113.2 million in just the 6 home games in 2023. So they what they felt what the Prime difference was $113 million just for the 6 home games in 2023. And then the other number that blew me away, they ran some research on all of the different TV spots that he's done. He's done a lot of different national TV, and he jumps on these game days. $343 million worth of free advertising from his appearances. The impact that Prime has, wherever he goes, the eyeballs go. It tells you that this game should be extremely well attended
and very well viewed. What are you expecting from some of the attendance? Have you seen a lot of Colorado fans? Have you seen a lot of BYU fans? I know you had the River event that went on yesterday where you got a kind of a look at the fan bases as they came up and lined the river as they floated the teams down the river and celebrated them. What's kind of the feel that you're getting on attendance?
Well, the early return from that pep rally last night is that this is going to be a pro-Colorado crowd. And even talking to some of the BYU players after the pep rally, when they're getting off the river walk, and they were even kind of surprised to be in an event, a neutral setting where there wasn't more BYU fans, because you and I know, Hans, like BYU travels everywhere. And, the wild card in the mix, for tomorrow is that there are a lot of BYU fans in Texas, and you wonder if they'll just make the game day drive in the Lone Star State to get to San Antonio and show up on game day. But as far as the last night and, walking around the town today, it's pro Colorado right now. And I think that, it seems it's kind of a theme of what this week has been, is that it's all the spotlight seems to be on Colorado, and BYU is kind of flying under the radar and looking to play spoiler and underdog. And, we know that, BYU tends to enjoy that spot and that space as an underdog that's kind of overlooked. And we'll see if BYU can perform, because I do believe that this is going to be a really physical football game, and it might be one that could, maybe rewrite narratives of what we think of bowl season in this climate of the transfer portal and NIL. I think these are two teams. It's refreshing. It's a bit of a throwback that these are two teams that want this badly, and that gets me fired up to want to cover this thing, because when you got two teams that are really good and they're energetic and excited to be part of this, like that should be quite a game tomorrow night.
Man, I'm with you. It's lining up to be spectacular. And just talking about the Coach Prime and the Buffaloes effect, in his 12 regular season games, Mitch, he's played in front of a sold-out stadium 20 times. So he's kind of got this Caitlin Clark-like influence on road games as well as home games. And the 4 games that didn't sell out, like one of them was Washington State. It was like Thanksgiving weekend when all the students were gone. Every one of them that didn't sell out, there's some kind of crazy exception as to why it didn't sell out. But these stadiums really do sell out when Coach Prime and his Colorado Buffaloes come into town. I'm curious, have you heard any early sales numbers for out the Alamo Bowl? I'm curious what type of environment I'm going to be calling this game in tomorrow.
Yeah, I haven't heard early returns on the total sales. Haven't gotten any official numbers yet from the Alamo Bowl. So I'm very curious too. But these hotels are packed, with fans from both teams showing up, but have not got an official number yet from what the attendance will be. But I'm expecting a big crowd, and seeing just from our perspective, the press box from field level, looking at it, I got to go check it out and kind of get a walk through myself and see where it's all laid out. But it's probably one of the lowest viewed viewings press boxes ever because of the indoor environment, and there's a suite level above. So it's going to be kind of for you and Greg, a unique visual spot, and it should be a really good broadcast perch to get a view of this game and this big-time matchup.
Just to give people an idea, and then we'll move on with the Colorado Buffaloes and what they've done this year. There's only 2 teams in this country that have had 10 or more of their 12 games viewed by 3 million or more people. Colorado is one of them. Georgia is the other. Colorado and Georgia tied 10 of the 12 games that they played had over 3 million viewers. Alabama and Ohio State tied for third with 8 games of their 12. So Colorado did what only Georgia could do otherwise in getting viewers with over 3 million. So my expectations, this will be the most viewed, most interested post-bowl or postseason game that is not a college football playoff game, Mitch. And I think that BYU has an opportunity to really grab the respect, the attention, and the interest of the nation if they put on a good showing tomorrow.
I'm with you, Hans, and I think that, it's been interesting hearing in these press conferences, media members that don't cover BYU, asking questions to BYU and being like, what should we know about you guys? And I'm thinking to myself, this was once the number 6 team in the country. This was a BYU team that was 9-0, and they act like, who are you guys? Like, they've just completely been slept on, whereas Colorado, they have a massive audience. And so you're right. I mean, this could be BYU's maybe debut in a way, like a coming out party to the nation. And I think that's exciting from the standpoint of you bring back a lot of personnel for 2025. I mean, I'm already putting together kind of my forecasted, 105 for next year, and seeing practice yesterday and seeing some of the young talent for a brief observation period that we had. There's some promising talent that's young and going to take on a bigger role next year. But then you got a lot of key returners and Chase Roberts and Jake Retzloff and Waylon Lapuaho. I'm really curious to see how he performs coming up tomorrow. So, it's a really nice blend for BYU. So if you can win this one and show well, man, that's a big springboard for BYU. And just moments ago, I was talking with Tom Holmoe and Brian Santiago, and you'll hear those interviews coming up tomorrow on Extended Pregame on KSL News Radio. But, they were talking about how they were, Kalani Sitake is the right man for the job. They talked about his contract extension that he has, just delivered. He's overcame any challenges that have been placed his way, and they wanted that stability with him. And, this is the first game for BYU coming out of that contract extension for Kalani that makes it clear that he is the long-term coach. And, it's a great showcase opportunity for BYU to really say who they are in this new Big 12 era for the Cougs.
You're listening to the Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio here at 102.7 FM and simulcasting on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Mitch Harper, the great Mitch Harper, joining us live from San Antonio, getting us ready for this matchup. So, Mitch, the guys on BYU Sports Nation this morning asked me this question. How important is this game for BYU? How important is a win for BYU in this bowl game?
I think it's very important because, you get a chance to get to an 11th win that's putting you in a tier where you're among the great teams in BYU history. It would be the second in the Kalani Sitake era, joining the 2020 team. And so there's some players, oddly enough, that were part of that. Connor Pay, Tyler Batty, they could have 2 years in their BYU career where they get to 11 wins. So I think it's a big deal. And I think it's big, too, from the standpoint of you really set a tone that, what happened this year was not a fluke, and that this BYU team, with it being against a Big 12 opponent, you can really lay claim that, BYU is going to be a program that's, near the top of the Big 12 and really maybe inject some energy and some juice, if you will, into that BYU Colorado matchup in Boulder next year. So I think it's huge. I think it's a big game. And I think I don't subscribe to the thought that it's bowl season. It doesn't mean anything. No, I think this is a big opportunity. And, hearing from Jay Hill yesterday talk about how he sees this defense has got to, they could have the potential to get better next year, but he wants this to be kind of the springboard to that. And so they got to show well, and what better opportunity than against a Heisman Trophy winner and Shedeur Sanders as a tandem. So I think it's a massive opportunity. It's a big game.
Let's take a look at this offense a little bit. Jake Retzlaff obviously played all 12 games, put up 2,976 yards. He's going to break the 3,000-yard barrier, which I think is fantastic. L.J. Martin seems rocked up, ready to go. But take a look at this offense for me and talk a little bit about where we're going to have to really watch some of the guys that are going to have to really play well in order for BYU to find a win.
Yeah, I think L.J. Martin. And I think L.J. Martin, this is a game where, if BYU can control the clock, move the chains with L.J. and give him 20-plus touches, I feel like he's been underutilized this season. We did see Hinckley Ropati in the early portion of the media observation window go through some drills. He's not on the depth chart, though, this week, and he still looked like he was a little bit gimpy going through those drills. But L.J. Martin's got to be a workhorse back for BYU, and I think he's going to be someone I keep an eye on quite a bit. And also Jake Retzlaff, too. He told me yesterday, Hans, that he feels fully healthy. And Aaron Roderick noted to me that, the injury or how banged up Jake was maybe a little bit underplayed in the month of November, and to the point where A-Rod said that against Kansas, he probably in retrospect maybe should have considered going to a different quarterback because of how banged up Jake was. Now Jake says he's fully 100%. He's as he feels as good as he's been before the Utah game. And coincidentally, that's when BYU, really the last time they were playing at their best against UCF when they were flying high down in Orlando.
Yeah,
so
offensively, yes.
I think that. So I think there could be that gives us a little snapshot maybe of, okay, does this look like BYU's offense of what they were in that 9-0 run? So I want to see Jake also, play at a high level too, and he cannot make the mistakes that sometimes he had in the month of November. And they got to come out strong too for BYU's offense. What they did against ASU and Tempe, that cannot happen. You've got to come out and get off to a fast start. I feel like this BYU team, more than most BYU teams, seems to thrive when they get on the board first. So I think BYU, the LJ and Jake Retzlaff got to be key for BYU in this offense.
Not a lot of news for BYU in the transfer portal, but if there is any news, it'd be on the defensive side with Crew Wakely, Ice Moa, and Sione Moa all entering into the transfer portal. Depth at those positions, all of them, Wakely's had some starting minutes and he's done some great things, but there's some other depth. How much do you feel like the transfer portal and its early opening has hurt this defense, and what do we see and who do we see kind of fill into those roles where we see Wakely and the Ice brothers, the Moa brothers, leaving?
Yeah, I think it definitely hurts for this game. Long term, I think BYU will be okay, and I think they're going to be fine. But to lose Crew Wakely, I mean, that was significant. I mean, he was out for the Arizona State game, and you saw BYU struggle in that one. Raider DeMooney, I would expect to get the first call as that starter. He was the starter against ASU, and DeMooney, talking with him in bowl practices, he just feels so much more confident. He even acknowledged there was a bit of a transition coming back from the mission and really learning Jay Hill's scheme and understanding what Jay Hill expects out of the safeties. And I think that, Jay Hill's coming from a perspective where he's content with what the safeties have been to this point. But as someone who played the position, I think he's really wanting to see, maybe starting with this game and going into 2025, someone emerge as an all Big 12 guy. He always points to that. Is it DeMooney? Is it, Falatau Satawala, Tommy Prasis? Matthias Leach is a young guy that this coaching staff really likes. He redshirted this year. He's going to dress tomorrow. He went through some practice yesterday. He's someone that they really like potentially down the road. He's a name to keep an eye on in 2025. But they want to see an all Big 12 perform on that back end, and I think this is an audition for DeMooney and Satawala to lay claim to giving the glimpses and signs of what an all conference safety looks like, because Jay Hill lived that life and he knows what it is, and he's coaching the Pac-12, and he has a high bar for what a good safety is, and so that this is the first chance for those guys and replace a Wakely to really show themselves and get the ball rolling for 2025.
Mitch, there's only a couple of statistical categories where BYU and Colorado are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. One of them comes in the sack game. BYU's only got 16 sacks on the season. That puts them number 123 out of 133 in the country. Again, bottom of the barrel. Last year they were 133 out of 133. This year, 16 sacks puts them at 123. On the opposite end of that spectrum, Colorado, number 15 in the country at 37 sacks through the season, averaging over 3 sacks a game. Talk a little bit about what BYU needs to do to get that pressure, that one-on-one sacking pressure, and why it has been so vacant over the 2 years of Jay Hill.
Well, it started out strong to begin this year, and it's just kind of, it hasn't showed up the rest of the way. And, some of the assignments that a guy like Tyler Batty has to take on, or he's taking on blockers, is maybe doesn't call for that. But this is the game to me where if BYU can, fill up a stat sheet, it's this one because Colorado's offensive line is prone clearly to giving up sacks. And this is the game for Tyler Batty to really show himself, getting the title of being first team all Big 12, high bar. He's been one of the few guys in the BYU group this week in San Antonio where he's gotten a little bit of a spotlight. And he's got to deliver, and he's got to put out some great film in his final college game to make that final push as a guy that should maybe be day 2, early day 3 prospect, for him. So they've got to get home to Shedeur Sanders. And, they've had struggles with dual threat quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that can run. And Shedeur's got the ability, but I don't expect that much from him. So this should be, again, an opportunity where they can get to the QB and get those coveted sack numbers. And I think of, SMU when they had Preston Stone in those first 2 drives. BYU ended Preston Stone, and he was not really much of a dual threat guy, capable, but that wasn't in his calling card, similar to Shedeur Sanders. And then, of course, after that, as we all know, Kevin Jennings took off and ran with that SMU offense from that point forward. So I think maybe there could be some similarities there where they just had a lot of dual threat quarterbacks and they haven't been able to get home. And this could be one where Shedeur's not as willing to run as some of the quarterbacks they've faced recently, and that could be maybe an opportunity to get some bigger sack numbers. But on the flip side, Colorado's got a really good D-line. DJ Green, an Arizona State transfer, he's the Big 12 newcomer of the year, and rightfully so. I mean, he has been a real force, and he was great at Arizona State last year, and he's only continued to get better. He's going to be an NFL player in the future, and so that's going to be a tall task for BYU's offensive line that's clearly nicked up with Braden Keim and Isaiah Jada out. And so they've got to be able to contain and keep Jake Retzlaff upright and not let him take unnecessary hits because, as we know, him taking some hits in that Utah game really altered the way that this offense has been operating since then.
You're listening to your Cougar insider, Mitch Harper. All right, Mitch, quickly, how does this game play out?
I think that right now, I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to come down to the wire. I still give a slight edge to Colorado because of just that superstar talent at the top end. BYU hasn't faced anything like this this year. And, that top end talent of Colorado is elite. I mean, they got the best player in college football with the Heisman Trophy winner in Travis Hunter. And his impact and Shedeur's impact is so significant. And the talent they've got on the perimeter, they've got so many options there. And this is going to be a real test for BYU secondary. I think Jacob Robinson's up for the task. I think even Mark Collins. But, man, they've got so many guys that they can throw at BYU secondary, and that's when you start to have the questions of what the impact of Crew Wakely and things like that. So, I would probably say Colorado slightly, but, man, I think BYU, just talking to them this week, and I think they've got the ability to pull it off, but I still kind of lean slight edge to Colorado to pull off a close game. But I think it's going to be a complete 60 minutes of down the wire. I think it's going to be one where it's going to go down to the final couple minutes, and maybe Colorado wins it late. But I think it's going to be a really entertaining football game.
Well, Mitch, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. We're sharing a room. Is that right?
We are. It's at the Marriott Riverwalk, so I have the bed ready, and nice. It's all made for you. Housekeeping came in, and they got it all ready for you. They got some treats, some food already lined up for you, so it's ready to go for you.
Mitts on the pillow?
No. Yeah,
that's right.
We get that pillow barrier going, Mitch and I.
And we've got, you'll love this, too. At the media, so right by my room, there's a media hospitality area. So last night, I just walk into it, and they're like, here, have all you can eat, Chick-fil-A, have some drinks, So it is open to like 1 a.m. Okay. So you can just kick in and out, do what you want, and it's just right there. So it's a good time.
All right, buddy. Keep it warm for me. I'll see you probably sometime tomorrow morning, and we'll have a blast on game day. Thanks, Mitch.
You bet, Hans.
That is your Cougar insider, Mitch Harper, here on your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and simulcasting on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. The voice of the BYU Cougars, the legend, the great Greg Wrubell joins us next.
This is DJ and PK.
BYU football coach Kalani Sitake.
I was just telling Jake when I got on that you guys are usually in a better mood towards the end of the show, And I remember when I was a younger coach doing the early morning parts, you guys a little bit more ornery, especially PK, So I'm glad to be on the prime spot with you guys, and I'm going to enjoy this interview.
Oh, he's giving me up.
I've already enjoyed the interview. I think Kalani's work here is done. I just mentioned that earlier this week, and PK lost his mind. I'm not.
That was back then. The point I'm making is I can be just as crotchety now.
No, I think you're in a bad mood now because it's not golf weather right now. But as soon as this weather picks up and moves on, we can open the golf courses. We will get PK at his best.
This guy knows me.
He's dropping truth bombs left and right here. This is Kalani's psychological profile of PK. Spot on.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The season for the Cougars isn't over yet as we get you ready for kickoff from San Antonio. This is your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We are broadcasting our Alamo Bowl coverage on KSL News Radio at 102.7 and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. So when we do something of that magnitude, we got to pull out the big guns. We had to call in the voice of the BYU Cougars, the man, the legend, my hero, my idol, the guy that I get to sit in the booth with and call these games with, the great Greg Wrubell. Greg, how are you?
Hans, I'm well. And where are you? You're supposed to be here in San Antonio.
Lloyd and I were just talking about that. We're hoping for good weather. I had to pick up a later flight, and so I'm going to be probably cruising in at about 12:30 in the morning, maybe 12:50 in the morning, and I'll get some rest. But we got that later kick, so I thought, I'll get there kind of late, spend the day out here with the family, and get the show done and taken care of before I head out to San Antonio.
Well, I've got a credential with your name on it, and so I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
That's the other thing. Greg makes it so easy for me because Greg is Mr. Professional. He's got everything laid out, and he's got rental cars, and he's got all the travel plans. And I know all I got to do is be in the right place, and Greg's got it all taken care of for me. Greg, you're the best at that.
Well, we're good to go, and I've already done a site check for you at the Alamo Dome. Great venue and great broadcast setup, and I know you'll be talking with Mark Johnson here, the voice of the Buffs, here in a few minutes. And I was able to spend some time with Mark earlier today, and that's always great. And what a great fraternity it is, right? A Big 12 broadcasters. And one of the great things about being in this league is all the great crews you get to hang out with on a regular basis. And Mark Johnson's certainly right at the top of the list in terms of broadcast professionals. And, I'm jealous of his pipes. I wish I had his voice. He is truly blessed and makes great use of his talents. And he's an outstanding broadcaster. CU's lucky to have him, and I know your listeners will look forward to hearing from Mark here at the top of the hour.
Top of the hour, 2:05, you're going to be able to hear from Mark, and we'll have a good time with him as well. But, Greg, give me some of your early impressions of this matchup.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of things to drill down on in this thing. It's interesting. People talk about Colorado as the high-flying pass attack, and it's an aerial assault, and it is all those things. But they're so pass heavy, right? They don't care much about the run game. If they get 75 rushing yards, they're happy. If they get 100, they're ecstatic. If they throw for 340 and run for 60, that's fine with them. That's 400 yards, even if only 60 come on the ground. But Hans, they have to run it a little bit, and the three losses they've had, they've averaged under 10 rushing yards per game. Okay, they're 9-3, and in those three losses, they didn't run it, but they didn't run it at all. They were minus yardage in one of the games. Again, they don't need a lot. 60 to 100, they're fine, but you can't average nine yards rushing per game, and that's what they did in those three losses, an average of less than 10 rushing yards per game. Also, what stands out: time of possession. I know this is a stat that you can manipulate, and a lot of teams don't need possession time to be good football teams, and Colorado is one of those teams. But the average for them is about minus 2 minutes per game, and 31 minutes for the opposition, 29 for CU. But in their three losses, they're a combined minus 40 minutes. They were minus 20 minutes in one game, minus 10 and minus 10 in the other two. Again, they don't need a lot of clock, and they don't need a lot of rushing, but they need more of both than they had in those three losses. So you look at their losses, and those were the common denominators. Couldn't keep the offense on the field and couldn't run the ball at all. as little as they try to run it anyway. And so that's where you can get Colorado, is if you can keep that offense off the field to a greater extent than normal. And again, you're looking at minus 10 minutes, minus 10 minutes, minus 20 minutes. Those are big edges. You may need a big edge against Colorado.
So I hesitate to put you on the spot on this one, but you typically have all that Greg Wrubell information kind of at the top of your mind. How many games have you called in your time involving a Heisman Trophy winner? Whether, it was the same season that they were named the Heisman Trophy or after they were named the Heisman Trophy in Travis Hunter's case. How many Heisman Trophy winners have you called in a game?
Well, if we're talking about play-by-play, because I did sidelines for a few years before play-by-play, but I called Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart games.
Nice.
Okay, and so I called Matt Leinart games the year he won the Heisman, called Reggie Bush games 2 years before he won the Heisman. The Sam Bradford game in 2009 was the year after he won the Heisman. So it's been a mix of guys who've won it the year before and guys who've won it after. And then you want to throw in Jaden Daniels as well, because BYU beat Jaden Daniels when he was with Arizona State. He then won the Heisman with LSU. So I've, 4 or 5 Heisman winners, I guess, over the time, some in the season of, some before or after. But, and I for a long time, I thought Reggie Bush was maybe the most explosive, pure athletic talent I've ever seen in person, like called a game. I think Reggie Bush was at, and so I'm looking forward to see where Travis Hunter kind of falls on that spectrum.
So how do you deal with Travis Hunter, both on the offensive and defensive side? And what do you expect BYU to do with Travis Hunter, both on the offensive and defensive side?
Yeah, well, defense, I mean, you can certainly avoid him if you want. I mean, that's you find out where he is and you throw away from him. I guess that's an easy answer to that one. Offensively, BYU's faced McMillan, BYU's faced Tyson, BYU's had other good individuals, but the fact you can pair Travis Hunter with LaJohntay Wester, that is, that's what makes it unique, because the other guy, the opposite guy, has 10 receiving touchdowns and 900 yards. I mean, it's not just Travis Hunter. He's so good, but yet the guy, if you want to bracket or pay more attention to Travis Hunter, well, then LaJohntay Wester may just eat you up. And don't forget about Will Shepherd. He's at 600-plus yards receiving. And Omarion Miller may return in this game. Omarion Miller hasn't played the last 6 games. He says he'll be back for this one. We don't know, but he's another explosive talent. Had only 10 catches before going down with an injury against K-State. So they have 4 primary receivers, but they can throw to 5, 6, or 7 of them, and they're straight 4-wide team. I mean, they've gotten more heady this way too, Hans. I think through about games 8 or 9, they were maybe 55% of their snaps, 56% of their snaps in 4-wide, and now they're up in the 60s, near 70 every game at 4-wide. So they're truly going all out in the throw game. A lot of 4-wide, a lot of empty, and Wester and Hunter together are quite the imposing duo. Again, 24 receiving touchdowns between those two guys. Between those two hands.
It's incredible.
BYU as a team has 21 receiving touchdowns. These two guys have 24. And Hunter can do it in a variety of ways. I've seen him score on those little tunnel screens coming in. They can run them on flies. They can put them on slides. They really throw to him every possible way you could find him. Shedeur Sanders doesn't spend a lot of time with the football, as you've seen. When he gets in trouble is when he hangs on to it for longer than a second and a half, 2 seconds. Most of the time, that ball's out of his hands within 2 seconds. And this may take us back a little bit. No one really uses the term, run and shoot anymore, but this is a run and shoot team. Don't you get that sense when you watch Colorado that this is what we used to call the run and shoot? That's what we're seeing now with Colorado, which means that one of the reasons his completion rate is so high is because he throws it so quickly. So many of his completions are within such a short distance to the line of scrimmage. He's top 5 in a ton of major passing categories, but his yards per attempt number is actually down at 15th because he throws so many short passes that get out quickly and don't give the defense enough time to lock onto a receiver. That's why he's passing at 74% right now, which is tops of the country.
You're listening to Greg Wrubell on your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, also simulcasting at 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Just getting you ready for this bowl game that we're excited to call. We'll be on the call. That thing kicks, what is it, local time? Is it 5:30 tomorrow, local? 6:30 Central?
6:30 in San Antonio, 6:30 San Antonio, 5:30 Mountain, so 3:30 Mountain Time pregame tomorrow.
So 3:30, you're going to want to tune in, and we'll be getting your pregame ready for you. Be having a blast on this call. Greg, I want to go just over to the BYU side of the ball offensively. Tell me what you need to see from this offense to get enough points on the board to beat this Colorado team.
Well, the last time BYU scored on its first possession was more than 2 months ago. That was at UCF. So it's been a while. And we saw, Hans, BYU's offense in those first couple of months, whether they scored or not. Sometimes they have an INT or a fumble and deep in a drive, but they were moving the ball in those opening possessions. And they haven't done that in a while. BYU's won its last 9 games when scoring on its first possession. BYU's won its last 34 games when scoring a touchdown on the first possession. But the last first possession TD came in Orlando in late October. I think a key for BYU is to play from in front. When the Cougars just score first, any kind of score, and whether it's first drive or not, when the Cougars score first, they've won 12 straight games. And under Kalani, their record is a very impressive 43-9, just by getting out in front. Whether it's up 3-0, whether it's up 7-0, it just get out in front and play from there. I think BYU's got to play with a lead. It's been a little while. Their November wasn't great, Hans. They had lower scoring games in November. They went 22 at Utah, 13 versus Kansas, 23 at Arizona State. Bounced back for 30 against Houston, but I think that game included defensive score, if I'm not mistaken. No, the special team score. That's right. On the Tanner Wall. Was it Tanner Wall? No.
Yes.
Talon Alfrey.
It was
Talon
Alfrey.
Alfrey on that onside kick. So 23 points from the offense in that one. So now you're looking at 4 straight games where the offense has not gotten to 24 points. And that's, as that's the pillar. You score 24 or more, you're in pretty good shape. You're going to win about 85% of your games. Well, BYU's not been there in 4 straight games. They need to rediscover their offense. It's been a while. And Jake Retzloff, his strongest months were September and October. Didn't have a great November. And as Jake went, so went the team. So this is a bounce back spot for BYU. They've got to rediscover some things. They seem to have lost a little bit of in the latter part of the season. And whether or not Jake was playing at full strength and full speed, I felt like he got hurt late in the year, and maybe they were hiding him a little bit. It felt like at times. But if he's that hurt, do you start him? I don't know if you do. They started him because he could certainly make the throws they thought he needed to make, but he wasn't as effective as he was earlier in the season. So I think it's a big game for Jake that way, and for the BYU offense, which hasn't been clicking in a little while. And if there's any team you got to do it against, Hans, it's Colorado.
No doubt about it.
You take a look at it. I mentioned BYU's last 4 games scoring fewer than 23 or scoring fewer than 24 in all of them. Well, you look at Colorado's last 4 games, and in 3 of them, they've gone 41, 49, and 52. Okay, so no drop-off whatsoever. Their last game was a 52-0 shellacking of Oklahoma State. That's their last memory of offensive football. So there's a lot that has to work for BYU. Again, this could be a shootout real easily, but you got to have the weapons to answer in this game. And I'm just genuinely intrigued and curious to see where this thing falls because, BYU's not a great pressure team. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're actually pressure okay. They're not a great getting home team. They have a pretty good pressure rate, but only 16 sacks for the season, which is a very low number. And Colorado, meantime, when Shedeur hangs onto the ball too long, well, he's been sacked 39 times. The Buff quarterbacks have been sacked 39 times. That's a big number. So can BYU do a little more getting home than they're used to and keep that Shedeur Sanders pass completion rate down a little bit is one of the questions we'll have to see answered tomorrow in BYU's favor. And as it always comes down to in these games, Hans, we try and find which team has more of the postseason juice, right? Because both of these teams, well, let's remember, both of these teams got knocked out of the Big 12 title game by Kansas, right? Kansas did it to BYU one week and Colorado the next week. And that's why neither of these teams is playing or got to play in the Big 12 championship game. They both lost to a team that finished with a losing record, Kansas. So both these teams knew what was in their possession. They had their destiny in front of them, and both teams let it slip at the end of the year, losing to the same team. That said, Hans, remember, on the final night of the year, had Houston upset BYU and Provo, Colorado would have played in the Big 12 title game. So, yes, both teams got beat by Kansas, but BYU, in a way, also kept CU away from Arlington by taking care of Houston on that final night. An interesting little note. So, what do you talk more about, 10-win seasons or 11-win seasons? I tend to think it's a double-digit win season. When you get to 10, you've got the double-digit win season. Everyone talks about how many 10-win seasons, double-digit win seasons. 11's kind of like the bonus game, the extra win. And yes, 11's a big number, but for CU, they're playing for a double-digit win season. They're playing for that 10th win, which BYU already has. Colorado last had a 10-win season 8 years ago. So it's a little milestone thing that may play into this thing, that 10-win thing you can really hang your hat on. Well, BYU's already got that hat hanger. They're playing for the 11th.
Man, Greg, this thing lines up to be an incredible game. Every way you look at it, it lines up to be an incredible game. Can't wait to get out to San Antonio. I will see you tomorrow sometime around 3:30. If not a little bit earlier, maybe for some breakfast, and we'll get after this call. We'll have a blast. Greg, thanks for your time. Really do appreciate it.
Look forward to spending the day with you tomorrow, and this should be a great one. It's one of the most exciting non-playoff games we've got, certainly in the postseason. And I know you'll do a great job talking it up with Mark Johnson, the voice of the Buffs here, coming up in a bit. He's outstanding, and you'll get a great Colorado preview from him. By the way, something I think you'll talk about, and I just want to throw one last thing at you, Hans. What if BYU had to play this game without Isaiah Glasgow? Would that be a big deal?
Oh, man, yeah, massive.
It'd be a huge deal. Well,
massive.
Colorado lost their Isaiah Glasgow to the portal. Linebacker Nakai Hill-Green has almost the same numbers as Isaiah Glasgow across the board, and he left after the regular season, will not play in this bowl game. They lose a Glasgow-type player at linebacker, their second leading tackler, 11.5 tackles for loss. He's a Glasgow on that team, and he's gone. So in terms of defensive playmakers, they lose a big one. BYU's only portal loss defensively was Crew Wakely, a good player, but not the impact of Nakai Hill-Green. And I'm sure Mark will talk about that with you. But that's a hole they have to fill.
Oh, yeah.
And I think something just kind of to look at as we get into this game tomorrow as well.
Excited for it. We'll see you tomorrow, boss.
Okay, thanks, Hans.
There you go. Greg Wrubell. He is the BYU Cougar voice, and he's already out there in San Antonio keeping the place warm for me. I'll get in there sometime 12:50 in the morning or so, and we'll get this call going, starting with the pregame at 3:30 right here on 102.7. This is your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM, simulcasting on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We'll come back. We'll recap some of the things that are going on currently in bowl game coverage, and then we're right back at it with Mark Johnson, Colorado play-by-play voice. That's all coming up right here on 102.7 and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
College football, where it was with geographical conferences, was better. I hate an 18-team Big Ten that features Oregon and Washington playing on the Big Ten network. That makes no damn sense.
Oh, of course.
None.
No.
So what are we doing here? And then you got the situation where Indiana doesn't have a good win on their schedule, but they make the college football playoff because they don't play everybody in their conference. How can you be the champion of a conference if you only played half the teams in your conference?
Right.
What are we doing? I don't like it, but you embrace what it is. You embrace the chaos. It's entertaining one way or the other, but I'd prefer it to be the way it was as opposed to where it is right now in 2024.
The athletic director for Alabama said, well, now you forced us into reconsidering what we're going to do with our non-conference schedule.
Everybody from Alabama, just take a seat, man.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're listening to the Alamo Bowl preview show as we get you ready for the Cougars and the Buffaloes on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Those Utah Hockey Club updates brought to you by ReadyWise. Be wise, be ready, your trusted partner in emergency preparedness. Watching Georgia Tech taking on Vanderbilt right now, and we talk about Vanderbilt because Diego Pavia is kind of the problem child of the NCAA right now. He was the one stomping around, filed a lawsuit, wanted his years of eligibility back from his time in the JUCO ranks, And it looks like he's been granted such, and it's kind of changing the NCAA landscape.
It's created a little bit of chaos.
Yeah, it has.
In college football.
It has. It's a logjam is what it's going to cause, because we're talking about potentially thousands of JUCO athletes that are going to find a year or two more eligibility and be able to hang around the sport. One of those guys would be Darius Lassiter for BYU. Darius Lassiter could potentially get 2 years of eligibility back. Heck, if we want to go any deeper, Jake Retzlaff, he started his eligibility out at the JUCO ranks. And I could see Jake Retzlaff really finding interest in that, Lloyd, because I don't know how much of an NFL quarterback he is, but he's got potential to make a lot of money at the NCAA ranks, so he'd be very wise.
And that's what this becomes, by the way. Like, those people that are, those players that are not, I mean, Cam Rising, because of his health, and this has nothing to do with Cam Rising because he was not a JUCO, but I'm just saying you want to stay in college because that's where you can make your money.
Yeah.
That's where you can make, if you know that you're probably, the chances of you being an NFL guy, especially with his health, he's not with his health, there's no way, I can't imagine a team takes a chance on him. Then it's like, okay, let me see if I can get another year of eligibility.
Yeah. And if I'm Jake, I do that because
absolutely,
Jake could be a $800,000 quarterback next year. That is kind of the going range for his type of productivity, his type of leadership, his style of play. He could make $800,000.
A guy that just missed out on the college football playoff.
Yeah. It could be incredible. So we'll see. But the logjam that this could cause is just mind-boggling. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. You're going to hear from the play-by-play voice of the Colorado Buffaloes, Mark Johnson, next.
The season for the Cougars isn't over yet as we get you ready for kickoff from San Antonio. This is your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Really excited about our next guest. We're going to jump into some Colorado coverage with one of the greats, Mark Johnson, Colorado play-by-play voice. And Mark, before we jump into some football talk, I've been worried about you, brother. I saw that you went through some tough times before this season got started. A couple of surgeries and a broken pelvis. How are you doing lately?
Well, not too bad. I was joking with Greg earlier. I said, hey, if you're ever going to beat me in a foot race, now's your chance, because I'm not moving real quick. You know, guys, I'm doing all right. It was I'm a team roper, and in fact, it was on my birthday on July 30th. I'm in the arena, and I roped out my first horse, jumped on the second one, warmed her up. She seemed fine. Nod, steer comes out. I chase her. She starts bucking, which is no big deal, but she wouldn't stop. And we got down the arena, and finally she came back, and the saddle horn hit my pubic bone, and they call it the open book. I don't mean to be too graphic here, but you can think about what that means from a pelvis standpoint. It just popped open. And then I didn't want to go forward and break my neck and have something worse happen, so I went off the right side and broke all my ribs on the right-hand side. And so, yeah, it's been a long – I've got plenty of titanium in me, and I did the first ball game on August 29th against North Dakota State. I got done, and I was on my crutches and walker getting out of the stadium, and a reporter came by and said, how was it? I said, not too bad. I only cried during the commercial breaks. So we got through it, and I'm doing just fine now, but I appreciate you asking.
I just can't even believe it. That is just incredible to me that you're able to come back through that. And I'd actually read a story, I don't know, a month ago or so, that they had done on you. I can't remember if it was a Buff Zone or some piece that they put out that you were dealing with a throat issue or voice issue because you were intubated as well. Was that something you were dealing with?
Yeah, it was actually the Nebraska game. Right before the Nebraska game, we're talking, Gary Barnett and I were talking right before going on the air, and I thought maybe I sucked a mosquito down as we were talking. The windows are open there in September in Nebraska, and my voice glitched on me, and I didn't think much about it. You know, kind of hurt when you do something like that. And then the next couple of weeks, it continued to happen. Well, what had ultimately happened when they intubated me, they ended up injuring or bruising or scraping the vocal cords. And, you know, in our business, man, that kind of puts you back in your heels a little bit. I was a little nervous, and so they actually treated me with Botox, of all things. I did ask if they could maybe attend to the face when they did that, but they said insurance wouldn't cover that. So They kind of treat me through that. I've been doing a bunch of natural healing stuff, and I've come through it rather nicely. It still bothers me a little bit, but the off season will cure that once we get through basketball here. But yeah, that was honestly, guys. The other thing hurt a lot worse, obviously. But this is the kind of thing, doing what we do for a living, that really kind of scares you a little bit. Like, holy cow! I mean, I'm hoping this isn't going to end the career or something. I'm going to have to go drive a truck or play a guitar or something to make a living. And thank goodness that didn't have to happen.
Man, that would shake my courage for sure. Been doing this thing for 18 years, relying on the voice to get it done. And you start messing with that moneymaker, that could be a real problem. And yours is so special that you can't mess with that at all. Last thing, and then we'll jump into the football coverage. Yeah. I grew up in northwest Idaho in a town called Weiser, Idaho, right on the Oregon border. So we were all rodeo all the time up there. Team roping. One of the most intriguing aspects of the team roping is laying the trap. Talk about how you're able to gather up those 2 feet in the rope, because I think that's one of the finer arts of all of rodeo.
Well, it really is, and I'll be honest with you. I like to joke with one of my partners that I team rope with. I'm the header, I'm the glamour side. All the smart, good-looking fellas are on the head side, right? Yeah. Because we get action every single run. It's when the guys like me then miss the head that the healers aren't able to come in and lay the trap. I play around with the healing end. And dude, that's why I don't do it, because I'm not nearly talented enough to be on that end, because those guys are really special. The way they lay that trap and are able to scoop up 2 feet is amazing to me. I get out and help with some brandings every year, and I like to go and play around a little bit and see what I can do there. And I'm just good enough to get by and drag a few calves to the fire and stuff. But yeah, I'm not nearly talented enough to go out there and compete on that end. I do okay on the front end. I don't need to get on the back end, because I'd starve if I did that. I can tell you that. Well,
I'm jealous of you. I'd love to have some radio or some rodeo along with my radio, but I just can't do it. I just cannot do it, but I'd love to do it. All right, Mark, let's jump into this. How incredible has this 2-year run been with Coach Prime in covering the Colorado Buffalo?
Guys, it really is amazing. And this is not hyperbole when I say this. You go back to December of 2022, and Colorado was, I think, very objectively speaking, the worst power conference team in America, power conference program, I think we can say. And I don't think there's any question. They're the most irrelevant football team of the power conferences as well. I mean, it was brutal how bad. Guys, this is year number 21 for me, okay? So that was number 19. I was just wrapping up. And I couldn't believe how bad this program had fallen from a once great stature of winning a national championship and having the first Heisman Trophy winner at that point in time. And you're thinking, oh, for goodness sakes, please make a hire of somebody that can just slowly turn this ship. Well, what did Rick George, the athletic director, do? He went out and got one of one, Coach Prime Sanders, who, he and I are exactly the same age. So I kind of grew up watching him come through, Florida State and prime time and Dion and all that he was, who comes in and not just energizes the program, but in 2 years has flipped this thing to the point now it's a 9-win football team, competed for the Big 12 championship, obviously, and they got a Heisman Trophy winner, maybe the best quarterback in America in Shedeur Sanders. It has really been transformational what he has done in 24 months. And I'm not sure there's another human being on God's earth that could have done what he has done in this short a period of time. It really is amazing to sit in the chair that I sit in and witness what I've seen now the last couple of years.
Well, one thing he's done is he's surrounded himself with great NFL talent on his coaching staff. And you would think one Hall of Famer on a coaching staff would be impressive, but you've actually got two. And I kind of want to wander into territory maybe others don't very often, but sure. Warren Sapp listed as a senior quality control / defensive coach, but you see him on the sidelines, you see his energy. Warren, I've got to believe, is a very unique character, but what exactly is his usage as a coach on this staff? Because he gets plenty of camera time, and it sure looks like he's got some influence on this defense.
Oh, he certainly does. In fact, there's three coaches up there in the defensive front, and they kind of divvy things up a little bit. And it's supposed to be interior coach and an edge coach. And then Warren would be the third that I think in a normal world would be kind of that distant third guy who kind of helps out where he can. Well, when you've got a gold jacket like that gives you the gold ticket where you can go wherever you want many times, right? When you're that kind of personality that Warren has, and he's a dynamic guy, kind of like Dion is. I mean, he's in the middle of it and breathing fire and spitting nails and all the other stuff that he does. So it's really kind of a unique situation right there. And you're right. I mean, when you've got one of those guys on the staff, it's stunning. But having that second one out there and then being able to impute that kind of knowledge, to those players and it's that old, for those of us who are a little bit aged, that old E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton speaks, right, the whole room stops. Well, when you've got a guy like Warren Sapp back there along that defensive front, all the players, when he starts speaking, man, they're all ears. And it really is kind of a unique thing. And the staff that's sprinkled with NFL guys from top to bottom, that's the one thing I'll say about Coach Prime. People see the Kardashian-esque social media existence that the program has. There's a camera and a microphone everywhere. You can't be around him and not realize you're not being recorded video and audibly, every single moment that they're out there. Behind the scenes, there's a real football operation that really is awful impressive. And that was the thing I didn't know about him when he came in. I thought, okay, the flash is coming in. Is there substance behind that? And that's the one thing I've learned about what he does and how he orchestrates this program and how he, as an architect of this thing, how he built it. It really has been amazing to watch. And Warren Sapp is just one of the cogs within this machine.
Well, one thing we don't talk about anymore, but I found impressive when I was putting my notes together for the call coming up tomorrow, is that he also hit the highest team GPA that Colorado's had in, I can't remember, was it 10, 12 years, something crazy like that. The team GPA has jumped since Dion has showed up. And I've seen him throwing those life lessons on video as he's talking to his team, whether it's, hey, it better be a really good puff because if I smell any smoke, that's your last puff. That was our presser yesterday or 2 days ago. And I'm like, dang, man, this guy, he just does it different than anybody else does it. But he's got academics skyrocketing right now, Mark.
It really is amazing because, a lot of coaches will preach, that we do it the right way. I mean, that's not unique to hear a coach say those kind of things. We all know that as time goes on, if you really watch, the external message does not match the internal. To borrow a Dion term that he uses all the time, he doesn't settle for bull junk. He doesn't so he's got these words that he throws out. There's no bull junk in his program. And so when I'm out there at practice, and practices are not open, but as the voice of the team and working with the university, I'm allowed to come on in and watch. And that is a constant message. I mean, he's just on him. But fellas, if you do things, if you're going to bring bull junk into my program, you're not going to be part of my program. And he has in 2 seasons. I wondered initially, okay, fine, that's the message. I understand it. Is this going to be the reality? But it's become the reality. And he's pushed guys out that didn't want to seem to handle things. There have been a couple of guys who have transferred in who might have had a history of bull junk, and then they get here, and they're supposed to toe the line. And if they're not toeing the line, they're gone. And so it's been pretty impressive. Like I said, everything that he does from that external, that persona of primetime and all that, it really overshadows the fact that behind the scenes, it's kind of an old school kind of program, and it's kind of fun to watch, and I've enjoyed that aspect of it.
So, Mark, did the Heisman voters get it right between Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter? Because Shedeur's numbers, as I've put my notes together and just taking a look at his year, they're spectacular. And they're underrated from my point of view. They're an underrated, underutilized, underlooked at, under-talked about number and statistic. So did the voters get it right between Sanders and Hunter?
Well, I'll tell you this, and all due respect to Ashton Jeanty and what he did. I mean, he's phenomenal. I enjoy it. It's not like, we see enough college football, and I'll tap into games, but when I saw Boise was on, I went over and watched him because he's that kind of player. But, 29 players have rushed for over 2,000 yards in the history of college football. I'll just tell you this. The guy that I sit next to is a pretty darn good football coach in Gary Barnett, right? Did phenomenal at Northwestern, did phenomenal at Colorado. Is a great football coach and has seen it all from top to bottom over the course of his 50-plus years, in the game. And here early this season, he actually said it. Travis made a play. And Gary is not a guy that speaks in hyperbolic terms. And he just says on the air, rather matter-of-factly, he said, Mark, I'm going to say it now. that's the greatest football player I've ever seen.
Wow.
And that's a guy that, you want to throw out the names like the Barnetts and the Edwards and the McCartys and, all these kind of guys that have been great football coaches for a long time. Coaches don't speak in hyperbole, right? And Gary, to make that kind of comment, said something to me. He's the best I've ever seen. I've covered some great athletes over the course of my 35 years of doing this. I've seen him do things that I didn't think were possible. His ball skills are amazing. His agility, his body control. There are times covering wide receivers where you swear he's a shadow because his movements, totally mirror the wide receiver. What he's able to do on the offensive side of the ball. There are no 50-50 balls with Travis Hunter. When it goes up, it's his. He has made catches this season that were almost indescribable. And so I think he's the best football player I've ever seen. And there have been some great ones. And so I think they got it right. And I think I can say that objectively, despite the seat that I sit in and the fact that I'm covering the team every single game. But, yeah, he's an amazing, amazing athlete. And I'm interested to see what he's able to do at the next level.
You're listening to Colorado play-by-play voice Mark Johnson here on your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and simulcasting on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, so, Mark, Greg and I were just talking about this. Greg Wrubell, obviously my co-host in the booth, was just on about 20 minutes ago, and we were talking about this. Colorado losing Nakai Hill-Green, 6'2", 230-pound backer that has been fantastic for this Colorado defense. How much does that hurt this defense in regards to overall production?
Well, I think that's a great question that I don't know that I got an answer for, but I'll tell you this. He did not start the season starting in that position as one of the inside linebackers. And Gary and I talked about it many times during the year. After they made the move that he and Levante Bentley then became the two interior guys, I thought that's when the defense settled down and played its best football. I thought he was – Travis obviously was the most dynamic player on the defensive side. Cameron Stillman, Craig, the safety is kind of the heart and soul of that defense. The guys, Okunlola and Nwankwo, some of those guys in the defensive front have been so solid. But I thought when the Kai Hill-Green was placed in the starting position there at linebacker, I thought that really kind of settled that defense down. And so he was a phenomenal player all season long. He had 82 tackles, 11 and a half tackles for a loss, a couple of sacks, had a couple of interceptions. He's a hard-hitting guy, and so they're going to feel that. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You can't take that kind of quality out of that defensive unit. He wasn't a one-man show or anything like that, but he was just a guy that tied everything together, if you will. And so I think that's one of the questions I've got going into the game. Okay, number 41's not out there. What does that do? How do they compensate for that? Who's going to be? And I don't think they've nailed down exactly. They may have internally. They just haven't said anything externally about who's going to be in that position. I'm, in fact, here in about an hour going to go do my pregame interviews with the coordinators, and I'm sure they'll let me know at that point in time. But no, he was very good all season long, and we're missing him, and now he's an Alabama Crimson Tide player, and I wish he was wearing the black and gold because he was awful good.
How did they rack up so many sacks this year? Nobody was in double-digit sacks. It's just there's sacks spattered all over the place. How did they do this?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? 37 sacks, and the top guy, I'm trying to think, I guess B.J. Green had, 7 or so, or 7.5 or something. Yeah, a lot of times when you see that kind of number, you got a guy, maybe one or two that's got 9 or 10 or 11 or something to kind of make up the bulk of it. It really was coming from different directions. And I think Robert Livingston, who was the first-year defensive coordinator for the Buffaloes, and he's a young guy, comes in for the Cincinnati Bengals. Guys, I didn't know who he was when they named him. I was at a speaking event. Pride was there, and I walked in. The organizer said, "Hey, you're going to interview Robert Livingston on stage tonight." And I said, "Who's Robert Livingston?" And they said, "That's the new defensive coordinator." I said, "Never heard of him. Where did he come from?" I had to pull my phone out and Google him real quick to find out. Defensive backs coach with the Cincinnati Bengals. I quickly found out from some friends in the NFL, he's kind of a young guy that everyone looked as kind of an up-and-coming star in the coaching ranks, and he has been awful good this season. And the scheme he's put together and the way he's creative with creating pressure with that defensive front results in that big sack number that you're talking about. And so it's not one guy. It comes from all different directions. And I think it's really, it really was kind of confusing the opposing offenses, what he was able to do this season with his movement and stunts and blitzes and all those kind of things. And so, yeah, really a team effort from a sack standpoint for Colorado.
Well, Mark, I'll be joining you here in San Antonio. Probably we get there about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I've got a little bit later flight out of Salt Lake City. Just keep your fingers crossed the snow stays down and Delta continues their flights because I got to make it out there for this one. This is going to be a great game. Enjoy the call, Mark. I look forward to seeing you in the booth. And thanks for being just such a great representative of the conference and the occupation.
I appreciate it. Safe travels, and we'll have a warm cup of coffee for you in the booth tomorrow when you get here.
Sounds good. Keep it extra warm. Thank you, Mark.
All right, see you.
There you go, Mark Johnson. As good as it gets. How about that, a rodeo accident? How did he describe it? Opening the book? Is that what he said, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Opening the book, and
good descriptor.
Oh my gosh! Well,
because all of us have opened a book way too wide. We know what that does to the.
Yeah, I was reading through the pelvic fracture that he suffered, and the surgeries. It took 2 surgeries, all kinds of plates, screws, to put him back together. And I don't even know how he sits there for a broadcast, but the one that scared him, and the story that I read, I can't even remember where I read it or when I read it, but in this occupation, when you start talking about the vocal cords and the vocal cords being affected, and what's strange about this occupation is I don't have the most beautiful voice. Okay, everybody kind of knows what my voice is. It's a little bit nasally. It's a little bit pressed. There's a lot of air that comes through as I speak, but my voice is recognizable. What people don't like is when that recognizable voice changes. They don't like it. They hear it. They can hear the hiccups in it or the delay or the higher pitch, and they know the personality and they know the voice. When it doesn't match, it bugs them. That's just the bottom line. It's the facts of broadcasting. And I remember when this happened with Mark, there was a big story like Mark is the most beautiful pipe in all of college football. They consider his voice the golden standard of college football broadcasting. And there was this hiccup in it. I was like, geez, man.
That is, and you could hear it, like, that's scary. I mean, that's his career. And you heard him talk about it. He's like looking about, what am I going to do? Drive truck to finish my, it's like, what are we going to do? This is what we have. The 2 things that we need in this business, our voice, and obviously we need to be able to hear. Like, we need to be able to hear what's going on. So it's 2 things I'm very cautious about is my voice and my hearing.
Man, it's just a crazy story for Mark Johnson, and love that he'd take some time with us. It's going to be a great game. I'm headed out to San Antonio later tonight. We'll be on the call pregame, brought to you at 3:30 right here on 102.7, and we do appreciate 102.7 for being partners in the Alamo Bowl preview show. That's here on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, also simulcasting at 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We'll take a quick break. We're going to come back to my sideline partner, Mitch Juergens, and get some insight from him in regards to this Alamo Bowl matchup. That's all coming up.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now, it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
She bangs! She bangs!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're listening to the Alamo Bowl preview show as we get you ready for the Cougars and the Buffaloes on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
That's right. It is a big day. Our Alamo Bowl preview show, both on KSL News Radio 102.7 and 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. And when you got that big signal, you got to get some big-time talent. That's why I called up Mitch Juergens. And I was like, Mitch, we got some time to fill, man. We got to talk some football. Mitch, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm actually looking at this picture of you and your twin brother, Garrett, standing next to Elder Bednar, who is one of my all-time favorites when it comes to conference talks, him and his aviation. When did you guys get to meet Elder Bednar?
So that would have been right before the Vegas Bowl when we played Utah in 2015.
So I'm looking at Garrett. Was Garrett a bigger bencher than you? Did he had bigger bench numbers, didn't he?
I do have to give it to him by like 5 or 10 pounds. he won't let me live it down.
So he actually did. He outbenched you.
Yeah, but that's why I got him in the marathon. So it all comes full circle.
I love it. Did Elder Bednar give a talk or something? Did he speak to the team?
Yeah, him and his wife came and they spoke with the team and I mean it was great. It was a fun experience. Anytime you get to rub shoulders with an apostle, it's I mean you're just putting on your listening ears and doing your best to listen and learn. So, but it was pretty awesome.
So really quick, just twin brother comparisons. Okay, twin brother comparisons. Who's funnier?
For sure, me.
Okay, so you got Garrett in the funny department.
Yeah.
Okay, and you got him in the running department. He got you in the benching department. Who was the overall better football player?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, overall, like it's. I mean, honestly, like I got a little bit more playing time, but I honestly believe, and this is a true answer. Had he been in my position, I think you would have seen the exact same results. Like he's a stud, and wish he would have gotten more opportunities when we played.
Are you guys competitive in everything? Like, do you call him and say, "Hey, guess what, Garrett? We're pregnant again," and Garrett's like, "Don't worry, I've already got my other one's on the way." Like, are you competitive on everything?
I mean, we're competitive, but we're supportive. On the kid front, though, we each have 3 kids. All of our kids are within like 2-3 months from at each stage. So our firsts were within 3 months. Our second was within 2 months, and then our thirds that we just had about 6-7 months ago are within a month apart. So it's pretty fun. They've got built-in best friends.
That's incredible. That's incredible. They would line up like that. That's a lot of fun. Speaking with Mitch Juergens, he does sidelines for the BYU game days, and he does a fantastic job and has done it for a lot of years, and he's just incredible with his knowledge, some of his insight, and what he's able to do. So, Mitch, you flew into Houston, is that right? And you're driving to San Antonio today?
Yeah, on the road, actually. Just stopped at Buc-ee's, got myself a 3-meat sandwich. Hans, you would have loved it.
What's the 3-meat?
Yeah. Oh, it was brisket, sausage, and turkey.
Oh!
But it wasn't like, I mean, if it was just a turkey sandwich and they took the brisket and the sausage off, it would be a good sized sandwich. They don't short you the meat just because they're putting 3 meats on there. So it was like a triple decker type sandwich. I'm sorry. I would have gotten one for you if we were together.
I wouldn't even have cared if the bun was stale when I got there tomorrow morning at 12:30 in the morning. I wouldn't even care. We'll all be together 3:30. We got pregame coverage that'll be kicking off. Greg, Mitch, and I will be taking over game call at 5:30 for this Alamo Bowl. And when you look at this matchup, BYU and Colorado, what stands out to you from the jump, Mitch?
I mean, right off the gate, it's got to be the Colorado pass attack against Jay Hill and this defense. I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks, all season long. The BYU defense has been top 5 in the country when it comes to pass efficiency defense, and then now you're going up against the offensive player of the year, Shedeur Sanders. What he's been able to do, and they let it rip. And so this matchup, I'm so excited to see how it turns out, how well, how real and how good is this BYU secondary to put some pressure on such dynamic playmakers for this Colorado offense. And so to me, that's the matchup I think we all want to see how this turns out. And Jay Hill, I mean, he's got his hands full, but and one thing we've learned this season is Jay Hill comes up time and time again and just gets it done.
You understand the wide receiver and corner positions extremely well, very, very well. what makes Travis Hunter so good at both, and just kind of in the same vein, I was putting together numbers. If you take out the second half of that Colorado State game, so just the second half of that Colorado State game, eliminate that, he would average 121 snaps per game. If you do include the second half of Colorado State, it's 114 snaps per game. So talk about him in the wide receiver and the corner positions and that amount of snaps in a game.
Well, first off, on the snap count, I remember because I played in the Robert and I go fast, go hard offense, and there were times when we snapped between 80 and 90 plays a game, and that was obviously, that's a high offensive production, and playing that many snaps, you feel it the next day, and I felt like I was in shape. I could handle, playing 60, 70, 80 snaps a game, but then to double that, like it's remarkable. And I think what we're seeing with Travis Hunter is, it's no secret why the guy won the Heisman, because not only is he doing it, but he's doing it at such a productive level on both sides of the ball. And to your first question though, like how does he do it? Like what makes him so good? And the thing that pops off the film when you watch him is just his sheer athleticism. That stuff can't be coached. But he's got incredible coaches, and you see the improvements that he's made and just how good of an all-around football player he is. But there are plays out there. It was the reception against Utah. You don't make that play if you're not a freak athlete like Travis Hunter is. And so it's just, it's going to be so fun to see those two, specifically Sanders and Hunter, on ground level, on field level, two of the most, prolific athletes that we've seen in college football in a long time. And to get to see them, suit up against BYU, it's going to be a treat for sure.
You're listening to BYU Sideline Radio voice, Mitch Juergens, here on the Alamo Bowl Preview Show on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM. Also simulcasting 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, getting you ready for BYU in Colorado. I'm so excited to call a Travis Hunter game, a Heisman Trophy winner game. That's going to be a blast. But let's get into the specifics of Shedeur Sanders. Mitch, I played 20 years of football. I have been covering 18 years of college football. I've seen, watched, played enough that I've seen a bunch of different teams. And I don't know if I've ever seen an entire season played and only one individual through the entire season complete a pass. Shedeur Sanders is the only player on this roster that has completed a pass through this season. Not a receiver throwback, not a backup quarterback in cleanup time. Ryan Staub, who is the backup quarterback, he had 4 attempts. He went 0 of 4. So he in the limited attempts, he did not complete a pass. But the amount of weight put on Shedeur Sanders has been incredible. Talk about his performance and your thoughts on what he's done this season.
Yeah, again, just remarkable. What's crazy about this too, like when you look at the offensive stat sheet, you look. What was really interesting to see as I was preparing for this game, Colorado to date 397.6 yards per game. BYU 397.4. These offenses are basically identical in terms of total yards. But when you look at Colorado, that's all through the air, right? They're last in the FBS in rush yards per game. And so, again, you talk about the pressure that's put onto Sanders. He carries so much. And what sticks out to me about that, with the amount of pass attempts, he's the only guy throwing balls, as you mentioned, 8 interceptions. That's remarkable. They played 12 games. To throw as many passes as he does and to do what Colorado has done. It's not like they're just trying to barely outscore the opponent, do as little as they possibly can. Like they're putting up some really they're having incredible performances from the offensive side, and he does it protecting the football. Like that's a really smart, well-coached football player that again is going to have success at the next level, as we've seen, or all the talk indicates that, and that's impressive to say the least. Like you see a lot of these guys light up the stat sheet, throwing for well over 300 yards a game, but they're also throwing picks. They're turning the ball over because with that kind of play, you see a lot of the risk that that's displayed there. And for Shedeur Sanders, like, that's not happening. And so it's pretty awesome to see.
So, Mitch, one of the things I try to do in my predictors is I try to identify the team that wants it more. And I know that that's really a difficult thing to do, and it's really hard to gauge, especially through a regular season. A little bit easier to do in postseason play because you can look at transfer portals and you can look at players available, and you can kind of get a feel of who really wants to go out and win this bowl game. When you're trying to identify the want to, we're talking about Sanders, who is going to be a multi-million-dollar man and a big-time draft pick. Travis Hunter, who just won the Heisman and is going to win a lot more coming up in the NFL draft. Colorado's putting it on the line. Their big-time names are coming out to play. And then you got BYU. Chase Roberts announced he's coming back for 2025. Darius Lassiter, he's geared up. He's ready to play. Of course, Jake Retzlaff, he's ready to go. Nobody really entering into the portal other than Crew Wakely. So Glasker and Kelly and Taggart, they're all geared up. Tyler Batty, all geared up, ready to go. Can you put your finger on who wants this more?
To be honest, no. Like it feels like both programs want this really bad. Deion Sanders. I mean, these guys, like, to hear his remarks about no, it's such a privilege to play, and I think he's ingrained that in all of his players, even these NFL future stars. And so they're going to come out and want to just prove, like, hey, you didn't get the Offensive Player of the Year wrong. You didn't get the Heisman Trophy winner wrong, and then prove that on the field. So, I mean, you can see a lot of that want there. But on the flip side with BYU, I mean, this is where BYU's been all year. They're the higher ranked, or, they're 17, Colorado's 23. On paper, it looks like maybe they should be the favorite, but they're not. They're listed as the underdog, and we've seen this play out in BYU's favor, playing with that chip on their shoulder. And so I think there's a lot of, and to be honest too, like, as a player, if I were back suiting up and you had the opportunity to go take down the Heisman Trophy winner and the Offensive Player of the Year, like, you want to, you're going to go show exactly what you've been made of, and go prove it. And so that want has to be there. And so I think, I think for sure, like, I don't know who has the edge there, but there's going to be a ton of energy, a ton of passion, and that game's going to be, I'm getting excited just talking about it.
Yeah, Mitch, me too. And I called for this one in the Big 12 championship game. We remember going back when BYU was 9-0, and we were doing a post game. I said, man, I would love to see BYU meet up with Colorado in that Big 12 championship game. I had no idea that a bowl game was going to be a possibility at the time, but I'm pumped for this matchup. I think that we've got all kinds of great one-on-one situations, talking about guys like Arden Walker and B.J. Green, the two defensive ends for Colorado, going up against probably Caleb Etienne and I would imagine Austin Leosa, because I don't think Keim is back and ready, and I'm not sure Isaiah Jada is back and ready, but I would imagine it would be Austin Leosa and Caleb Etienne versus B.J. Green and Arden Walker. You got those one-on-ones. You've got Travis Hunter on both sides going face-to-face with Chase Roberts and probably Jacob Robinson, maybe a little bit of Mark Collins on the other side. You're going to see that matchup. It can't get any better. You've got Deion Sanders versus Kalani, the newly extended Kalani Sitake. And, Mitch, we get to have front row seats and we get to call the action, but I'll see you out in San Antonio coming up tomorrow.
Hey, it's going to be a fun one. Appreciate you having me on. And again, let's party in Texas.
Oh, we're going to party in Texas, and I'm going to find a way to get one of those 3-meat sandwiches. And
yeah,
and I'm also going to let Garrett know that, look, you might have outbenched Mitch, but he's a much better sideline analyst than you, Garrett. So take that. There you go. I'm always in your corner, Mitch.
Thanks, Hans.
Yeah, you bet. There you go. Mitch Juergens does a great job on Sidelines with BYU Radio. He will be on the call with Greg and I coming up tomorrow. We'll come back. We'll wrap this thing up.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Coach Bear, the Utah Hockey Club.
Clayton Keller, 26 years old. How much room for growth is there still at that point in your hockey career?
That's one thing I like about Kels. He has that philosophy of every day he's trying to be better. If he has a day off for his energy, he will do something else. He will read a book. He will watch a documentary or something who will make him better, who will make him grow. So I like that philosophy. And you talk about our identity as a team, that's what we want. We want to be hungry to be better every day. No matter what happened yesterday, we lost 6-1. There's nothing we can do about that. We won 9-2. There's nothing we can do about it. That's in the past. Now, what can we do today to be better, to go towards our goal to be a championship team?
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. The season for the Cougars isn't over yet as we get you ready for kickoff from San Antonio. This is your Alamo Bowl preview show on KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM and 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Those Utah Hockey Club updates brought to you by ReadyWise. Be wise, be ready, your trusted partner in emergency preparedness. Well, this is going to be a really tough game for BYU. I think it's an uphill climb against Shooter Sanders, against the Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, against a defense that I think has overperformed throughout the season. They've done an incredible job, and I think BYU's got a really tough task in front of them. I think that Vegas probably has this right, favoring Colorado by 3.5, maybe 4 points. But I also think BYU is committed. I think that they want this win. I think that they desperately want this win. And I think they want to avoid finishing this season 1-3. That would be your finish. Started 9-0 and finished 1-3. And you finished with a loss against a conference opponent in Colorado that you got to see again next year. So you're setting a standard, you're setting the precedent. We're still working on a lot of different recruiting right now throughout the country. BYU is going to have a ton of eyeballs on them and an opportunity to make a statement tomorrow. Make sure you join us at 3:30. We've got pregame coverage. Greg, Mitch, and myself, we're going to take you right through the game, and we're going to have a blast. I'm excited for this one. I hope that BYU can get up that mountain, but that's going to be really tough. I've got Colorado slightly favored in this game, but you cannot just throw BYU aside and think they can't keep this a game. I think BYU is going to be right in it to the bitter end. It's going to be an incredible one. We'll see you tomorrow at 3:30.